Today we'll be covering a movie called Baghead, a movie that, much to my surprise, is not a story about racist stereotypes, but a movie that may have well have been, due to me describing it as what I can really only say is that it's the most meh movie I've seen all year. A running theme for the last couple of weeks on this channel, as this is now the third movie in a row that I've finished watching while being left to feel completely uninspired. Directed by Alberto Corredor, the movie originally began life as a 2017 short movie that was shown at various film festivals before eventually getting a 2023 full feature-length release, and a short movie that I've been unable to watch due to my phobia of short people now extending to media. The movie begins at the Queen's Head pub, a nice name to call a pub considering that it is in fact not a pub. A man visits the owner and asks if he can see a woman in the basement, but due to the owner not believing in the concept of women, he is denied. This, for some strange reason, gives the owner the urge to begin vlogging, and he sets up a video camera to explain that there's something tied to the property and whoever owns it becomes its guardian. It's like having a child, except skipping the fun part of defecating yourself in front of the nurses on the delivery table. We then see what the man is referring to: a woman. Unlucky. For whatever reason, she's not allowed to be let out of the basement due to being grounded and forced to stay in her room, causing the man to come up with the excellent idea of setting her on fire. Anyway, the man accidentally sets himself on fire because he doesn't understand how tanning works, before it then cuts away to a woman named Iris after being evicted from her apartment due to having no money, as landlords discriminate against the poor. We then find out that her estranged father was the man who created the DIY sauna in his basement, so she travels out to identify his body with his fingers looking like burnt sausages. Not just hunger being the only thing she's inherited from her trip, but also the pub. An alluring prospect for someone with serious money problems, because now she can still have money problems, but just be drunk as well. Staying in the pub overnight, she's woken up to the sound of a timer going off somewhere in the house, as apparently someone's using the microwave. And while investigating, she discovers the door to the basement inscribed with what looks to be runes. Great. The pub is haunted by a Swedish ghost. After hearing noises, she discovers that there's someone else in the pub with her, a man named Neil, whose social awareness seems to be somewhat lacking due to him letting himself into random properties in the middle of the night. Neil being the man from the beginning of the movie who was denied by Iris's father due to having a hatred for people called Neil. He tells Iris that he needs to see her, but unfortunately not equipped with her mind-reading abilities, Iris has absolutely no idea what he's on about. But he offers her £4,000 to see the woman locked in the basement, who he refers to as his wife, as I too keep my wife locked in the basement. Sounding highly illegal and extremely immoral, Iris, completely disgusted at the prospect of a poor woman being locked in the basement against her will, tells him to come back tomorrow and bring more money. It's a tale as old as time, exploiting women for financial gain. After meeting with her father's solicitor, Iris decides, instead of selling the property for immediate money that she's in immediate need of, she's going to stay for a while and instead puts her name on the deed to the property. She's handed a tape with instructions on for the new owner, the unreleased vlog that her father was recording at the beginning of the movie. She learns about the woman in the basement who's tied to the property and the owner, as well as learning that she should absolutely not use or exploit her powers due to her slowly gaining influence over your brain. Immediately followed by Iris telling her best friend Katie that she's going to use and exploit her powers for financial gain. Now I know why your dad had nothing to do with you. You're an idiot. Later that evening, with Katie there, Neil arrives and they all head down to the basement to discover that it's actually a secret BDSM room after finding a chair with restraints attached to it. After realizing that her father was a bit freaky, at the back of the room we can see the structural integrity of the pub clearly in question, as there's a giant hole in the wall. Neil calls out into the darkness, but Iris and Katie, not believing in whatever is supposedly down here and not taking it very seriously, that is, until the silhouette of a person emerges from the darkness, and they're all confronted with the uncomfortable sight of a woman with a bag over her head, as this is the second movie in a month that I've covered that features a potato sack connoisseur. Neil tells the woman with a rather strange fashion sense that his wife died a year ago and that he needs to speak to her because he hasn't gotten any for a while. But like most women do when strange men walk into a room and start making demands, she walks right past him and towards Iris before immediately stopping as Iris tells her to. Like the average Twitch subscriber, she immediately does what is commanded of her as a woman tells her to do it, as she obeys everything Iris says. For more money from Neil, Iris agrees to have her strapped to a chair so he can use her to communicate with his dead wife, as apparently that's the only way to get a phone signal to the underworld. Neil hands the woman a ring that belonged to his late wife, and like any normal person would, she proceeds to eat it. It's not what's on the outside that counts, it's the inside. And my insides are full of expensive jewellery. The woman's hands begin to contort and change, and Neil, thinking that it's his wife now under the bag, lifts it up to discover his mother, who's been dead for the last 20 years. Because before the ring belonged to his wife, it belonged to his mother. Not one to squander an opportunity, he decides to ask her why she decided to not continue living anymore, despite the obvious answer of having children, but after a while her eyes turn black. Iris's father said on the tape that you've only got 2 minutes with the woman before she takes back over, and that's exactly what's happening now, as she tells Neil that it was all his fault, before leaning forwards for a kiss, with her neck looking like it's in desperate need of a chiropractor. The woman then disappears from the chair, as much like Laws, I guess it's just for show. She appears again, knocking him to the ground, and forgetting that she isn't a mother bird feeding her young, begins violently puking in his mouth. Iris commands the creature to stop before its face is covered again, where it then spits out the ring, before retreating back into its funny looking glory hole. The timer that Iris was woken up to the previous night is a timer that her father used to keep track of the 2 minutes in the basement. So watching the instructional tape from her father, Iris and Katie learn that the woman will obey the owner of the property, but only to a certain point. With prolonged use, she'll worm her way into your mind, as she wants more than anything to leave this pub because it smells like cheap lager and urine. Iris's father never came back into her life because once you were tied to this place, you can never truly leave. Sickness, death, and tragedy will follow you wherever you go until you return to the woman. Sounds like a toxic relationship to me. But despite what she's just witnessed firsthand and been told from her dead father, Iris still thinks that it's a grand idea to monetize this woman's ability, despite quite literally just being explicitly told not to do that, because she's a strong independent woman who does what she wants. And is also dumb. After Iris commands the creature to never leave the basement, she goes to pay Neil a visit while Katie is home alone with the demonic shape-shifting entity that will only listen to one person that just so happens to not be her. Because of this, Katie puts a keg in front of the basement door to make sure that nothing inside can open it, but while walking away, a picture drops from the wall and smashes on the ground. A picture from 1972 containing 2 men, with one of them being Iris's solicitor. After googling one of the names on the back, Otto, she discovers that he was a pub owner and died not long after a family tragedy, before closing the laptop to reveal him sitting there, because even in death, you can still be creepy towards women. Iris brings Neil back to her basement, because that's where she takes all of the guys, but this time Neil gives the woman a necklace to consume for sustenance. They set the timer and pull back the bag to reveal his wife. Well, ex-wife. While she's panicking and questioning why she's restrained to the BDSM chair in a dark basement, Neil tells her that she's dead and that she passed away in a car accident. And Neil, ever one to keep the mood light, immediately changes his tone and proceeds to ask her who she was cheating on him with. Talk about digging up old drama. This guy digs it up from the grave. But before he's able to get the answer he wants, the timer runs out, and the woman tells him that there was never any other man, she just hated him, which is honestly quite understandable at this point. After seeing the woman's true face for a second, Iris is able to put the bag back over her head, because that's one ugly woman. And after Iris decides to drown her own sorrows while looking like a 12-year-old drinking apple juice, she sees her father's reflection in the mirror. But just like all good things in life, it was a hallucination, and he was never there. But speaking of hallucinations, Iris then magically finds herself in one of her father's memories for reasons that I can only describe as bad writing. Like, why? None of this makes sense. Anyway, while inside one of her schizophrenic hallucinations, she watches her dad use the woman to contact his dead wife, that being Iris's mother, for people who don't understand the birds and the bees, as he tells her that he's sick and that he's going to finally leave this place to see Iris again to explain where he's been all of these years. And that's when it loops around back to the beginning of the movie, as the timer runs out and he's about to party like a spectator at the Salem witch trials. But instead of partying like one of the spectators at the Salem witch trials, he parties like one of the women at the Salem witch trials, as he's then engulfed in fire, and it hurts really bad. Later that night, Iris is woken up to the sound of someone saying her name, and thinking that it's Katie, decides that it's a great idea to head downstairs into the basement with the demon lady in the middle of the night. A great idea that results in her being jump scared by her dad, angry that she touched the thermostat. Unlike an American doctor performing a brutal surgery on a male infant, he begins violently pulling off his own skin to reveal the bagged woman underneath. And understandably, Iris begins choking her out because why not, but instead finding herself as the one unable to breathe. Being in a dream, she then wakes up to the key fashioned into a necklace around her neck, choking her unconscious as it's being pulled to the ground. Luckily, Katie was there to cut the necklace free, in that unluckily Katie was there, because that means the movie has to continue. Katie and Iris head to the solicitor's office to discover that there's no trace of him, so Katie attempts to get Iris as far away from the pub as possible. But Iris doesn't want to leave due to the influence that the woman is already having over her mind. Something we know for a fact due to it being interspliced with scenes of the woman suggestively rubbing the wall. The rather strange wall rubbing results in the pair having an argument and Katie leaving to let her deal with this mess on her own, but realizing that she wants to watch the next season of The Witcher, Katie decides to keep on helping by tracking down Otto's home to see if she can gather any information about breaking the curse. It leads her to an old dilapidated house where she discovers documents left behind that shows that Otto was trying to escape the curse too, but because he's currently a little bit busy being dead, she can't ask him if he ever figured out how to escape. And back with the woman, Iris continues to use her for activities that she was explicitly told not to use her for, and transforms her into her father. They're able to somewhat reconcile their estranged relationship, as he explains that he did try to leave to get back to her, but because sickness followed him, it caused her mother to become ill and pass away. Iris attempts to burn the deed, but unlike her father, it won't ignite. Katie heads back to the pub with the idea of using the woman to bring Otto back, but Iris is nowhere to be found, on account of getting incredibly drunk and passing out due to having daddy issues and mummy issues. Dead mummy issues. Katie heads down into the basement in search of Iris, but instead finds the woman who scares Katie into dropping her documents, giving her enough time to eat a piece of it. Getting 50-year-old documents confused for a sheet of acid, the woman then turns into Otto, who tells her that 400 years ago, a group discovered a woman who could conjure the dead, but like all good things in life, decided to abuse it until it was ruined. After she refused to use her powers for them, they had her burnt at the stake. But she didn't stay dead because the concept of death is a lie, and I'm going to live forever. The livestock, crops, and the local population then began to perish. So the group responsible for her death performed a ritual before sealing her in an underground tomb to be forgotten about. And forgotten about she was. Until she wasn't. Hundreds of years later, descendants of the group decided to open the tomb back up to abuse her powers just as their ancestors once did. And using her powers, she slowly corrupted the mines and killed them all. And now somehow, whoever owns the deed to the property is doomed to be permanently attached to this place for some plot reason I don't really care about. Katie's locked in the basement with the woman, and Iris eventually wakes up to a call from Katie saying to come down here. So Iris enters the tomb in search for Katie and eventually finds her deep within. But while heading back the way she came, Iris discovers something on the ground. Katie's body. Oh great, there's two of them. While making a run for it, Iris is helped by Neil, who has suddenly arrived, as he takes her from the basement. To calm the nerves, this basically random stranger offers Iris two completely unknown pills, which she ingests with zero hesitation. Zero hesitation because she has zero survival skills. Neil gave Iris Ambien, sleep medication, and despite the bottle clearly saying 1 tablet at bedtime, he gave her 2 tablets in the daytime because screw your rules. Iris unsurprisingly passes out, and sometime later wakes to realize that he did it on purpose. After heading down to the basement, she can hear Neil talking to the woman, saying that he wants to be the owner of this place because none of the previous owners knew how much power they really had. All that he wants in return is to be able to talk to his dead wife whenever he wants. He writes his name on the deed, but much like my father in the middle of the night, it vanishes. The creature then turns into his wife, where we then learn that Neil drugged her too after an argument, but she got in her car and left before they could take effect. She explains to him that she wasn't cheating on him, but was planning to leave with their unborn child, who will now forever be their unborn child, due to her being scared of him. The creature back in control tells him that they can be together forever, but not while Iris is alive and currently her keeper. So after chasing Iris through the house and onto the roof, he throws her to the ground below. With Iris choosing to nap in this really weird place, he takes her body down into the basement and has the creature bring her back so he can have her sign over the deed. But what Neil has actually done is put Iris in control of the creature, as now they are both one, as Iris's name is still on the deed. She has Neil's dead and bloated mother snap his wrists, and has his wife repeatedly hit his head into the ground. We then see what I think is the movie trying to tell us that the woman orchestrated this entire thing with a bowl of dirt, as she lets out her inner wrestler and finishes him off with a chair, destroys the deed so no one else can be her guardian, and walks right out of the basement and pub without us knowing for certain who's in control. I'm in control, and I'm turning it off. So before this video comes to an end, I'd like to just give a massive shout out and a big thank you to all of the YouTube members and patrons, the people who every month continue to go out of their way to help support the channel. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or patron yourself, not only are you just generally being a great help to the channel, but you also get access to a few little perks, like being able to join the private Discord server, where you can then get links to all uncensored versions of videos going forward. So starting off with this week's new YouTube signups, a massive thank you to Trevor Kendall, Matthew Hartman, James, Ashley Taylor, Travis Pribliski, Christiana Donahue, It's Emily, Ryan Worthington Mann, Kim Adrian Magadeo, Conan, Ridley01, Thomas Stewart, Luna, Big Bird, Jennifer Delgadillo, Sunganth Fandavarian, Reigns VT, KJ, Splendid S, Etterman, Blood Eagle, Roxanne Vivo, Bex, Just Correct, and Mr. Smiles. And now heading over to this week's new Patreon signups, a massive thank you to NSX, Matthias, A Person, Jared, King Rabbler, Justin Jackson, Borkley, DK, James Valdez, Lil Rose, Matt Muska, Zane AM, Christopher Baker, Sierra Alexis, Jackim Baker, Patchy, Heather, Brooke Perry, Easy for Control, and Seckle the Angel. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.